Hi, my name is Bob, and we're here at the Boise Door Shop today, and I'm going to show you how to build a pocket door. Now over here is where I stock my heads, my backs, and my faces. This is material for a 2/8 2x4 head. I'm going to bring it over to my bench so I can get ready to start building some heads. We have that one, and I'm going to also build my 2x6 walled 2/8 head at the same time. And we have jigs that we utilize to make the assembly of these heads work a little quicker. This is our jig for our 2x6. We'll set it there, get my stapler down. We use the stapler to assemble the heads, and it's also used in the process of assembling the frames. We take one of our faces that we use for the heads, and we have the cut edge and we have the finished edge. It's rounded. I always try to put the rounded edge out or down, and we try to go flush here and then squared up on this end. Right here we go flush and squared up right here. This will give us the proper dimensions, proper placement of all the pieces. Put a staple in about every foot and a half. And then we repeat the process for the other side. Okay, now I'm going to set this one off to the side for the moment and go ahead and continue building for the 2x4. Now we're done with this jig for now, so I'll put it back in its place and grab my jig for my 2x4 walls. This is the jig we use. Basically the same idea, just different thickness. Try to keep the spacing of the staples relatively uniform without being too wide, and we don't want to be too wasteful, so we try not to get them too close. That's why we go roughly a foot to a foot and a half. Now we'll set this one off to the side and assemble one more. Now, what I like to do is I like to line up the one end to make sure that they're all even, so I can measure out for where we put on what I call pseudo slats, which helps us to line up for where these heads set on the frames. These are all relatively squared up. Now this one's a 2/8, so the width again of the length of our slats is 31 7/8, so that's where our pseudo slat ends up landing. It's a 31 7/8. I make the one mark, grab my speed square, draw a line across, and anytime I move these around, I always double check to make sure that they stayed squared up. Now that sets me up for where my pseudo slats are going to go. My pseudo slats are cut out of drops off of my faces. This happens to be a couple of drops off of some faces that I cut earlier. Cut it yesterday for a different pocket door frame. They're roughly about 9 inches in length. I've got a mark on my saw on both sides to give me an idea as to where they land. Now these aren't critical in their length, but again, we don't want to be too short. And I'm a little bit anal retentive, so I like to match things up as well as possible. So I'll make 2 cuts at a time. Now right now I have enough pseudo slats for 4 heads. We're building 3 right now. So I only need these. So I bring these over, line them up with the mark that I have on the one end. If you'll notice, we see our mark here. I bring these in right onto that mark, and I put 5 staples in to hold the slats on. Okay, we'll put the stapler out of the way for now, hang it back up. Now I get to cut down some track to fit in the frames. Now, the track that I'm cutting up today is for a 2/8 pocket door frame. I have different lengths of track over here. We have 6 foot, 5 foot, and 4 foot track. We're going to cut down out of the 6 foot track for my 2/8 pocket door frames. We need 3 pieces. So there's my 3 pieces. Now, what we're doing nowadays is I'm getting the measurement for the track off of my table because it's already set up to give me the proper length. So I will utilize my guides, put a mark on my track, double checking to make sure, and see that one wasn't lined up quite right, so I'll have 2 marks on it. And then we'll go over to a different saw to cut it down. Now we have this shield on here. We don't like to utilize this shield for cutting down metal. So now I've got that marked, I grab the track, grab my face shield, watch for where Matt's at with his stuff. It looks like he's getting ready to do something on his bench, so I'll patiently wait and then announce myself when he's cleared. Area! Take the metal shield that we use, shut off the suction, and announce that I'm going to cut some metal. The shield goes back here in the back. Metal! And make sure that the guy in the next area knows that we're cutting metal. Remove the shield and put it back in place. Grab the straps, grab the materials out of the way. Let Matt have his area back. I take the tracks and drop them into the heads I've built. And we have jigs to help position our tracks. To make sure that we don't get them set too far this way or too far that way. Now we've got quite a bit of space between that first hole and where the one end is. So at this point I'm going to add another screw. Now these screws are self-drillers. You can see where they're cut a little bit. So they'll drill their own hole. So I position the screw in place. And there she goes. And what I like to do is I like to go ahead and get a couple of tracks started and run them right on down. Now lumber has a tendency to not always be perfectly straight, and our aluminum track is straighter, so we end up moving things around a little bit. So that's why I work my way down the line. And I watch my reveals here, and I'll position the track accordingly. If I don't have enough reveal, I'll pull it over and position it where it needs to go. And again, we got a little bit more distance down here than what I like to see, so I'm going to add one more screw to the end. We try to set our screws about in the center, and roughly 3/4 to an inch from the end. No more than an inch, and typically not much more than 3/4. There's two of our 2x4 frames for a 2/8 pocket door frame. Now, being as I'm going to be building these right away, instead of putting these in our rack to storage, I'm just going to set them on the bench, make them that much handier to grab hold of later on. Less footsteps. Now I'm going to grab the material I need, the jigs I need to build the 2x6 heads. We have the spacers for the sides, and then the spacer for the top of the track. This slips in there, position the track, grab me a handful of screws, and away we go. Basically, it's the same process as I just went through with the last one. It's a little bit wider head, so we need a little bit of help in visualizing where the head needs to go, the track needs to go. And there we go. Now we have our heads all built for the frames that we're assembling today. So now it's time to put the jigs back to their home, and we'll get this material off the table and out of my way. Now we're ready to start assembling frames. So first thing I'm going to do is grab a stack of my slats for my 2/8 off of the bench that I cut up earlier. Set them there, and I have these green lines to give me an idea as to where they need to go. As I'm putting these down, I like to try to keep an eye out for where my knots are, because knots have a tendency to cause blowouts when I nail things together. So this is the one side. Now I'm going to build a 2x6 frame first. So now I'm going to grab part of my jig for that. There's 1/2. Now I'll grab the back for the 2x6 that I had also cut up earlier today and put it in place and finish filling in all the slats. And now to get an idea as to where the stiffener lines up at, we take this jig and place a mark on the end of the slat. That'll help us know where to put our stiffener. Stiffener is a piece of metal strap that's U-shaped that secures in. It helps keep the frame from doing all kinds of weird angles on us. And typically what I'll do is I'll grab several of them out at one time, grab the stiffeners and face at the same time, bring them over. And I intentionally drop the stiffeners on the bench so as it breaks them loose a little bit, makes it easier to grab hold of. Lay them down, slide them into place. Now, one thing I did almost forget to do, and it's pretty common to forget to do this, not a big deal, but it's still, you do want to make sure that before you start nailing things together, you do it. Pull the jig tight so it lines all the slats up properly. If you wait too long to do it, it has a tendency to move the stiffener too far down, because what it'll do is the slats will shove the stiffeners down. But then we just continue on down the row, securing the stiffener to each slat. Repeat the process up on top. And we take our faces, set one there, and then I'll grab what's called a foot, and for the moment I'll put it right here and one of our shipping blocks, and on the shipping block I'll put the information for the size and builder and job number. This one's a 2.868 2x6, and it is for Brighton Homes, hence B8. Job number, this will help the shippers to know who gets what as they're pulling it out of my rack. I'll set this up here out of the way for the moment. Stick the face in place. Now this is where the finish nailer comes in. So I grab my finish nailer and get it ready to go. Now I try to flush it here, and we want it flush across there. We put in 2 finish nails, and again, flush and flush, 2 finish nails. Grab my square, set the finish nailer down. Make sure that we're relatively square on this end, top to bottom. Then I come up here to the one where the shipping block's going to be secured and do the same thing, square it up. And then flush and flush. And then we secure the shipping block, put in the tube, pull out the foot that was temporarily placed, put in 2 more, grab the square, set the shipping block down here, pull slivers out of the hands. Never get slivers with wood, we never do. And then just continue to repeat this process down, making sure things stay square and flush. And you want to watch where you place your hand when you go to put these together. You don't want to set your hand here and then drive a finish nail in. You might get a little high and nail your hand to the frame. You don't want to do that. So you want to be close enough that you're lining things up properly, but at the same time out of the way of any potential danger. Put your tools back, put the finish nailer away again for a period of time. We'll come back to it again later on. Now we grab the stapler. Now we can take the jig out and put it down in its home. And position the foot. And again, flush and flush. Now, as you staple things down, things have a tendency to move a little bit. So I try to account for that. And again, keeping fingers in a safe location. Even this thumb's in a little bit of a precarious position in the process, but you still want to be close enough that you keep things in the right place. And then we put in 4 like that. And then I come around over here. We drop the fence down, bring the hose around behind your back so as it doesn't get in your way, and flush and flush. This is where the jig helps us to line things up. Come down, push the slat up against the stop, keeping things flush here. Now we're ready to flip the frame over. Put the staple gun up out of the way. Flip the frame over. And you'll notice that as I picked it up, I slid the jig to loosen things up a little bit, to make it a little easier to maneuver and reposition. Grab my staple gun. And position again, flush and flush. And flush and flush. And now we grab our square again. We don't have the jig to help us with our stops at this point, so we use the square. It's quicker, it's easier to maneuver stuff around. We use the square to position our slats. And we're at that point now. Now, I'm getting close to needing to reload, so I'll go ahead and do that at this point. A wise man once said, Don't put your gun away empty. And I'll set it there. Lift up the frame, set it on top of the pins, and then I'll go grab my head. We'll finish assembling this pocket door frame. The head that we assembled earlier, slip it into place. And we position it flush and flush. For a 2x6 frame, we put 2 staples into the back end of through the back into the head, and 1 through the face into the head, back, I should say, just like that. And then we grab the finish nailer and come around to the front and secure the face. And we go flush and tight. You may want to come around over here. Okay, we're flush here, we're tied up here. Down here, we got quite a bit of a gap. Now, because we have such a gap here, I'm going to grab me a helping hand, known as a bar clamp. Squeeze her down so as it holds her tight, and then we can position the face to be flush. And we have us a pocket door frame.